Everyone. I welcome you to the session Building Global Threat Intelligence Capability, How and Why Global Security Providers Have Set Up Threat Intelligence Centers. For the moderator, we have Mr. Phil Shaw, CE Lockheed Martin India Private Limited, Mr. Muthu Rajashankar, MD MSS Infra Services, Accenture Operations, Mr. Mohan Kanappan, Senior Manager and APJ Lead, Semantic MSS, and Mr. Anand Tiwari, Director, Cyber Risk Services, Deloitte. Welcome. I now begin the session.
Thanks very much, and thanks for coming along to this. Cybersecurity is listed one of the topmost factors facing the world in terms of threats. It's got everyone worried over the last few years, and there's been significant security industry focus on new age threats such as advanced persistent threats. Even the most sophisticated security vendors struggle to detect advanced attacks in progress. Lots of industries are moving towards an intelligence-led security model, which we want to talk about this afternoon, that provides organizations with the comprehensive strategic threat insights required to combat increasingly sophisticated and persistent attacks. An intelligence-led security capability offers deeper and broader visibility into attacks, attackers, and attack methodologies, thereby enabling organizations to more effectively detect, respond, and anticipate security breaches. It's become key to establishing a robust security posture tuned for the threats targeting each organization. As the cyber operations become integrated with physical, geopolitical, and competitive conflict, an intelligence-led approach to security will be key in detecting the most sophisticated threats and responding to them quickly and effectively, and that's what we're here to talk about now. I'm very happy that you've been able to join me this afternoon. These are the experts. I've done my talking. So I'll start to begin the discussion. I think the first thing is maybe to talk a little bit about detecting threats. So Muthu, if I can pose the first question to you, which is, why are organizations finding it difficult to detect and counter these new age threats, and how significant is the role of a threat intelligence center or capabilities in dealing with these threats?
Thank you, Phil. I hope I'm audible. Okay, good. So I think that's the relevant question for the day, right? So if you see why the organizations are struggling with the threat intelligence, I think we all know, all of you are have a knowledge, or they're working in security or daily seeing from your organization the threats and the challenges you have from the attacks that are facing every day, with the threats that's coming in. So the key reasons I would, in my perspective, is one is it's humanly impossible now to process the amount of data that's being made available from the threats and the threat information perspective, right? There's plenty of sites that's been giving the threat information. Can a human being go and do that, normalizing them and contextualizing them? Absolutely not. That's where I think it's one of the key challenges, one. The second is the amount of data that's being made available with the threat intelligence information as well, right? There is the advisories come from your vendors. There is plenty of rest of the open source that comes in as well. How do you normalize and again duplicate information? How do you process the duplicate, deduplicate them? How do you get that? That's a big challenge again, right? You can subscribe to hundreds of vendors, advisories. It's really the number of advisories that is being made available as well. There is too much of information on that. So how do you get that? That's a big challenge. And third is really how do you compact the insider threats? In security, you can buy tools, technologies, continue to deploy, continue to have attacks, right? Unless otherwise you fix the human behavior. So that's primarily that comes from an insider threat as well. That's going to be a big challenge. So with that being the challenges, that's where lot more organizations are coming up on saying that threat intelligence being the flavor of the day or flavor of the from a security capability perspective, organizations are trying to build really the threat intelligence centers. Across companies, across countries, there has been an effort to share the information from the cyber threats, right? How many of you we have seen now recently the attacks that's happening, the amount of money that's being involved in it, right? The Bank of Bangladesh, the attack that happened, $100 million, right? And they could only trace $19 million out of that. $81 million, absolutely no trace, right? If you see that, And we are talking about information age. There is Swift systems. Obviously, it was attacked by a Swift. The hacker got into the Swift exchange system. He could put a malware, and they could change. And the big joke on that was the hackers. Their intention was to take away $500 million, and their English knowledge was so poor they had made spelling mistakes on the transfer. When they did the transfer. So that's why 400 million got flagged off, and the 400 million did not go to their account, right? So that's where we live at, right? It's absolutely $100 million. We have systems, everything. It's only $19 million. They could recover $81 million. Absolutely no trace, right? It went to a particular country, it went to another country. There we could, So it's obviously, which means that there is a lot more need for the countries to share the information, right? So countries to share the information, businesses to share the information. We'll talk more on that as well. So threat intelligence centers are coming relevant to each of the organization. Either you internally built it, or from an industry, you are from share the information. If you're particularly from a financial service or oil and gas, then you end up sharing the information. So that's why threat intelligence centers are gaining the right attention. That's been the capability all the organization want to build as well, right? Really, how do you share the information, the amount of data that's being made available to you as well? So clearly, and also organization or the threat intelligence centers clearly working on a community-based sharing platform. Like, I don't know how many of you have known about the open source platform that's coming on Soltra, right? If you go there, that gives you TTPs, which is tactics, techniques, and the procedures, and the threat actors. If you go to the really into the next level of the campaigns, the cyber threat campaigns the hackers run, all that information comes in, how the information, so that the open source based, that community based sharing platforms are coming very relevant. And some of the protocols, I think if you ask me personally, the industry as such, from a threat intelligence, it's clearly moving away from the tool based approach, which is what we are all used to from a security perspective, whereas it's clearly coming to an protocol based, coming with an taxis, stakes, and also Cybox, all this information exchange platforms that is coming in, right? What they are giving is a protocol. This is how you need to share the information. How you want to utilize that, that's up to you, right? So don't go with the tool. A tool may have a good capability, part of it you have to then occur on another tool. So I think it's a good evolution that's been happening in the threat intelligence as an industry from a security perspective, and it's in good way.
Thanks very much, Muthu. Anand, if I can turn to you and ask you to talk a little bit about how organizations can build capacity or enhance existing infrastructure to scale up security ops using intelligence-driven solutions.
Sure, Phil, thank you. See, the way I look at it is intelligence is all about getting the right context to the information that you have, which primarily means that as an organization, we are privy to cyber threat information from multiple sources that we have in the organization and out the organization. It's all about how do we get the right context to that information. That context could be industry, could be adversaries, could be threats, could be the actual user of that particular intelligence information. Now, if we look at it, primarily there are three levels of organizational context that it has to be leveraged. One is your operations team, right? So operations teams needs a tactical threat intelligence, which primarily focuses on what needs to be blocked, what needs to be patched. So those are something which team is monitoring on a day-to-day basis, whether it is security operations center or a network operations centers. So first thing is, where do you obtain the technical information for environment which is specific to you, right? Whether it is in vendor source, whether it is in technology that you have deployed, to make sure that your infrastructure as well as your environment is adequately protected. Second is the operational intelligence, which primarily focuses on once you have identified the technical intelligence to figure out that something has broken, how do you bring context to it, that what is the quantum of this breakage? Is it something which is is really big and has to go through the sort of an incident response or on a forensics, so that you can assess the quantum of it, right? A single threat can lead you to an actual thing which is happening for many months now. And third would be more around the strategic intelligence. What's happening for your industry? What's happening for geography? What's happening for by the group who don't like you? So it's about how do you bring that strategic intelligence to align your strategic security programs to meet as well as to address those threats which are specific to your environment, your industries, your geography locations, your application environment, or maybe the way you do business. And when organizations look for these capabilities, it's very important that we define what our requirements are. What is that we want to protect, and what is the criticality of what we want to protect. So that's where we have to look at those protection requirements, classify them in these three areas, and then probably find out mechanisms to integrate these capabilities. So take an example. Your tactical intelligence could be in form of an intelligence feed, as Madhu spoke about. Your operational intelligence could be in form of API, could be in form of XTIC protocol, wherein you can integrate, you can collaborate with incident response, with forensics, or within your industry. And probably the strategic intelligence will be long-term information focused or driven out of the knowledge base, which is again developed using the shared information sharing community. So that would be my take. I would primarily divide them in three areas. And basis the business that you are in, basis the environment you have, basis the location that you operate in, probably build a requirement map that you can take your help of either vendors or partners or develop in-house capabilities to address those. I think that's what I will say now.
Thanks. I wonder if we can talk a bit more about intelligence integration, please. I'll address this to you, Mohan. And how does this help in collate and analyze and provide alerts, provide context, prioritization, and that kind of thing for threats that might target a particular organization? How does the integration piece work?
Right. Sure. Thanks, Phil. Am I audible? So, security intelligence is basically developed by having a network of honey nets, and then the information, the anonymized information, is basically collected from those networks, which is widespread, and then that is being correlated by a big data analytics platform for attack threats, patterns, or indicators of compromise, be it anything. And then once we have those indicators of compromise, that is then fed into industry-specific or geo-specific or even organization-specific. It's deployed at that level. So what happens is once we have the indicators of compromise and or information about any campaigns, so that is being matched with customers according to their risk profile, based on their vulnerability information, or and like based on their assets to get to one level more. And then those information is basically matched according to their security posture, and then it is being alerted to those organizations on those threats. And it's not only about alerting, it's also about prioritizing. So based on that information, the alerts are also prioritized to the organizations. That's pretty much it.
Okay, thanks. And Muthu, so why do you think there are an increasing number of businesses looking at threat intelligence capabilities right now?
That's, I think it's again a very, very relevant at this context, right? If you take an example of a hacker groups, they are, it's a hard job to hack. It's not an easy thing, right? And some of the hacker groups are dormant for a number of years before they surface in the wild, right? Which means that they have to invest money, they have to invest on finding out how to attack, when to attack, whom to attack, right? So they also operate in a very specific, they're very focused guys. If you ask them, they're very focused on attacking oil and gas. There are groups, which announce a campaign like an Ops Patrol. They only attack oil refineries, OT, which is operational technologies, operations technology, which is beyond the IT system, where the production systems, the industrial control systems are there. Again, it's a hard job. They need to collect the data. They need to make sure that they are getting prepared for the attack. It's like, similarly, you go to the old age thieves, what they do. They come to near the house. They see the pattern when the people are coming and going out. It's a great analogy, right? And they break into the house when they know that, okay, this is the pattern of the house. Who's in there? What are the people? Who are there? Who's living? what time they come in and go, they attack. It's exactly the same way the hackers use that, right? They have to collect a lot more information. And if you see another group, Fin4, FIN4, that's a group again, very specific attacks they do on companies, pharma companies doing merger and acquisition. That's it. That's their complete focus. That's where they operate, which means that they have a very unique method of doing that. Finding out who are the contacts from that pharma companies doing part of this M&A division and kind of go and attack their emails and try to get a malware into their systems, and it's plenty of. So it's more than ever a collaboration between industries. So and the companies are more and more realizing that, right? Keeping in cyber security, operating in silos are not going to work anymore. Keeping your intellectual properties, your business, that is different than keeping a cyber security secure. You need to share the information with very specific to coming to the industry specific attacks are coming. I think more and more companies are absolutely realizing the need of keeping a secret of information of cyber security in silos of, I am being attacked. If I don't share that, maybe next day their attacks are going to get broader. And so in most of the countries where we operate, I think in India as well, probably that's what I hear from the people I talk, and some of you probably can agree or seeing that as there are industry-specific security meetings happens today, right? So the CISOs, CAOs of the companies, they meet and share the challenges they have from a cybersecurity perspective. So it's absolutely getting pivotal and very important to get industry-specific knowledge shared. By that, what you are doing, you are decreasing your cost of your protection, right? And you are increasing the cost of the hackers. Because they have to find out, if I share an information exchange, today oil and gas, you are getting attacked a particular country or a particular method, if you share among it much quicker than a hackers can get into you, you are much ahead in protecting them. So what you are doing, you are making hackers work more, right? Which means that may kind of move them away. Oh, these guys are much better in protecting their industrial control systems or anything. So which is where I think there is plenty of industry-specific information sharing that happens today. In many countries, I think that's a good thing to see. Government share a lot of information. If you see in the UK, the oil and gas, or what they call as a CPNI, critical national national infrastructure, I think CNI, CPNI, whatever it is. So the government share that information back to the respective companies as well. When the governments do that, they do that for there is an importance of protecting from a national asset perspective. So similarly, organizations across the globe from a specific industries, they see absolute need. Security cannot be no longer be in silos. You need to share the information. So that's why I think businesses are clearly realizing that only buying tools and technology is not going to work anymore. It's clearly you need to share the information, what you see, so that it's very clearly can be actionable. And that's why the platforms like Anand also spoke about the community-based sharing platforms and Soltra, which enables that. You don't need to give what your host or your internal information of vulnerabilities, what you have in which systems. Instead, sharing and vulnerability itself, it's not a bad thing, right? You are seeing a particular pattern, particular threat that is coming in, particular vulnerability that's being tried to be exploited by, or you are seeing a particular command and control traffic that's going out of your organization to the hackers. It's good to share. I think that's why these platforms are going to come in very relevant. In my own as a practitioner, I can tell you that's absolutely a necessary thing to do. And if some of you are in particular industries, if there is a hand coming from other companies, we all absolutely should embrace that. I would be big supporter of that. That's going to really, really help all of us, kind of stopping the hackers, make them work harder than today. So I think that's where it's absolutely, today it's absolutely important on sharing the information across the business, getting very, very relevant, and businesses are realizing much more than ever the need of doing that.
Thanks. So, Mohan, do you have anything to add on how you think these threat intelligence centers can actually help secure cyberspace overall?
Sure. So, like we just discussed, threat intelligence centers basically forms a community, be it geo or region or at any level, forms a community and make sure that staying on top of the curve by sharing the necessary details, so that if we can stop before it gets bad. So that's the primary thing that we are actually doing. And in addition to that, intelligence centers also have channels established with government agencies. If in case there is a nationwide a threat or any a major a vulnerability or an exploit that's coming, those engagements actually help in sharing with agencies, who then, like we just described, share it with across stakeholders. So that's the kind of the part that security intelligence has in actually protecting, I would say, the community as such, and making sure that we are all staying on top of the curve.
Thanks. Obviously, setting up a threat intelligence center is a feat, and not every company will want to do that, so, or be in a position to. So I just wonder if you can share with us, Anand, what capabilities you think organizations should be setting up themselves, and what threat intelligence providers, where they can help an organization as well in protecting themselves.
See, the way I look at it is organizations are the consumer of threat intelligence to an extent, because it is impossible for them to develop that knowledge base that you need to protect against known or unknown threats if you really don't know how to use, apply, as well as develop it from. Organization intelligence capabilities or development is limited to the tools and technologies and the human skills that they can acquire, implement, as well as manage. So what becomes more important is to, as rest of the team spoke about, leverage the industry-provided threat intelligence capabilities at all the levels to rightly implement them in your operational as well as technology environment, right? So maybe we can start with the technique, as I mentioned before. On the technical level, we can look at the internal intelligence that we have in form of assessments, in form of cyber threat information that we see from our inside network, whether it is with end users or with networks or with the systems, in addition to the security tools and technologies that we have deployed. But at the same time, you need to look at the information which is available from outside, right? What other your peers, your vendors who are doing security research, companies who are doing underground research, or people who are familiar with what's happening in the in the hacker networks, or in the what could be the next move, primarily from targeting the infrastructure point of view, so that you rightly apply those control as defined by those threat intelligence feeds. That's on the technical level. That's your maybe the system operations team needs to make sure that which patch to prioritize against the vulnerability which is at high risk in your environment. That is the information which your security operations center needs to make sure that they are aware, how critical this particular incident or this particular event that they are seeing on the same dashboard is. So, and the second thing would be, once something has been identified as a potential threat, how do you provide that more context to make it more relevant to your environment? So that's something probably your organization, as in whether you have outsourced the security operations or the system operations need. And second is your ability to provide incident response in case you have been compromised, or you have been, if you feel there's some iota of doubt that there's a potential compromise in the environment. That's where you need more of operational intelligence for your team, whether it is an incident response team which is done in-house, or whether it's an incident response team which has been hired from an external vendor. But at the end of the day, external vendor will look for the information which is specific to your environment to provide a right response. So, and it is not viable for every organization to build deep technical incident response or incidents, intelligence capabilities, because primarily because of the risk, skills and resource issues. Second, whether or not you will be able to provide them right tools and technologies, which could be very expensive to implement. And third is, in cyber threat, it's a global issue, right? You will not be able to employ people who know Russian to really understand what's happening in the dark web of Russian language, right? Something which is happening in Mandarin. not possible for an enterprise to do unless you're a Fortune 5 or a Fortune 1 bank, right? So you have to leverage on the external threat intelligence providers to do that so that you get the information which is relevant to you. And third thing is, organization, technology team or security team's ability to translate given intelligence information in terms of business so that you can go and talk to the CXOs to ask for right investment in, whether it is operations or technology or people, to make sure that they understand the business context of that particular threat, specific to geography, again, specific to that particular enterprise and that particular environment that enterprise operates at. So that's the reason you probably needs to rely on external threat providers, but at the same time, you need to have internal mechanism to consume that threat intelligence at all the levels, right? So I think that's the way we need to look at it. Our organization's ability to consume, unless you're large enough to do it yourself, as well as your ability to respond to those intelligence as it comes your way, and making sure that you're using them at all the appropriate levels to make the right decisions.
Thanks very much, Anand. We've tried to cover most of the areas on these threat intelligence centers in these questions, but I wonder if we've left any holes that somebody would like to ask a question in the audience. Any questions? Please.
Can you give us an example of threat intelligence providers?
So again, there are plenty of them, right? So if you are looking for threat intelligence specific to platforms, almost every security vendor today provides threat intelligence capabilities which are specific to most of the time, and no prejudice to any security vendor, but most of the time specific to their product, right? So then that's again a common trap for the organization, that don't fall for the intelligence provider which are specific to a particular product or specific to a particular geography, right? Because the cyber world is global. Right? Somebody sitting in Russia is going to attack somebody sitting in Eastern Europe, right? So we need to look at it in a manner wherein one, what is that you really need? If for tactical, you're going to look at the OEMs and the tool providers. Second is there are plenty of companies who only focus on developing threat intelligence, right? So which is more of operational intelligence. And third, potential providers could be who focus on a specific industry, threat vectors, and whom you can hire on, I would say, on a dedicated basis to do research specifically to your environment and navigate rest of the threat intelligence capabilities to distill and get it to you, right? So it's all depend how, what's your internal requirement and how do you, want to leverage that threat intelligence capability and the investment that you intend to make based on the perception of threat that your organization and your leadership has.
Okay, thank you.
So if I may add, I think a great response on there. I think clearly, again, as sitting in the panel, we are restricted not to support any particular vendor, but he clearly called out. There's absolutely commercial vendors who give a lot more deeper, intelligence data today for the business, which you can integrate with the traditional SIEM tool, Security Information Event Management tool. What it gives is the bad IPs, known attackers, bad URLs, right? Which means that your time to react to any incident. Today, what it does is you get a incident from your correlated event from a use case based, whatever you use any of the SIEM product. The time to respond is much longer because your analyst gets that, then he has to go and find out, oh, is this a known attacker IP, is the bad URL, so your reaction time is much higher. By that time, the attack surface gets widened, right? It gets spread, so your time to then finally get remediated goes increased. So that's why the threat intelligence feed as such is very valuable, whereas it will correlate immediately, tell that, oh, this is a known attacker IP, you don't need to even think twice, go and block them, right? And more industry is also moving towards automated remediation, right? With analytics engine coming in, predictive analytics, data science, we are in the data science conference. So which means that there is plenty of data. If you even see an example of SIEM tool, you get a billions of raw events, right? In a matured environment, what I've seen is probably 50 to 60 incidents is what actionable incidents would come. So from 1 billion to minus 50, what's the number? Huge data is available. The richness of data is there. And how do you use the data? So that's where data science would come in to drive from a known to unknown. Today, what does a tool provide? Work through the known, right? There's a plenty of data collected. You have a use case. If you write a good use case, then it picks up. Otherwise, it's still in the data. You still have a richness of data. So that's where the data analytics, the intelligence tool, which will correlate and give you, so your reaction time is much higher. And some of the tools like in firewall vendors and the your content filtering providers today are building the capability of going through an automated remediation action, which means that there's a known attacker IP, don't even think twice, go and first block my perimeter. Right? So which, the reaction time is much quicker, and that's what time to react and time to remediate, that does matter in containing your attack surface. What I call, attack surface, clearly that needs to be contained. So that's where it comes in. There's a lot more providers, I can privately talk to you in some of the and if you go and search it, it definitely would come in. There are, Mohan sitting here is probably one of the vendors who provides that as well. There's plenty of them out there, right? Some of them even get into dark web crawls, and they get plenty of very specific data to you, very specific data to you. So that's been that. Another pointer I would introduce today in security startups, this is probably gaining 40% of the investments made in security startups are in threat intelligence. That should give you a sense of the amount of money that is put into table for the startups or the existing vendors to work on that.
So, yeah, in those same lines, to add to our point, it depends on what the organization wants to protect. Like for example, there are vendors who can actually do brand monitoring. There are vendors who can actually do monitor web page defacements, and in addition to the other IOCs like IP or etc. So it boils down to the fact that what they really want to protect, and then choosing a vendor that actually caters to that need.
Okay, thank you. What kind of due diligence does that threat intelligence vendor do? Because the information, again, I'm going to look into it and trust that information, right? So what kind of due diligence will the vendor do to ensure that the information provided is genuine and correct?
I think that's a great question. I think it's a great follow-on question. If you may take Anand, if you could add later on that would be great as well. So again, that's why the commercial threat intelligence come to picture, right? So whereas I think traditionally, there is plenty of open source, by the way, there is plenty of open source feeds are available. That's where the issue you are telling, that's where, you have to take a time. There are hacker groups, there are forums, they put false information as well to redirect you to look at something else so that they can come and attack you in another sense of it, right? That's the problem with the open source today, right? If you get an open source threat intelligence, that's exactly the problem. That's what the commercial vendors today are addressing, right? Like any other commercial product, I cannot talk on behalf of commercial vendors how they are ensuring. So the common belief we will all have to get is the commercial vendor, so they have a due diligence that is built in, which means that, reputation and the deduplication, what they need to do, that's what they all do, and make sure that this is an confirmed intelligence information. What I do in the back end, what I get to you as a feed is something you can go and action it. I think that's where it clearly comes in. That's where, they're pretty expensive, by the way, right? The feeds are really expensive.
And another way that you need to look at it, you're going to consume that intelligence, right? So the operations team needs to head enterprise intelligence to really understand whether given intelligence advisory by a particular vendor can be applied in my environment. If you are consuming something which is not developed specifically for your environment, right? So you need to apply your right intelligence to use it, right? Somebody tells you that block that port, and you ended up blocking your business access, right? So that's what we have to ensure, that the operations team has the right set of skills to use that intelligence.
My question was basically, let's say there's an IP IOC indicator for one particular IP, and that's a false information that one of the competitor has put in to block access to the genuine vendor, and I just go and use an automated system to block it. Then I'm relying on the information part of the threat intelligence to block that IP, which is actually a genuine IP, not a blacklisted IP. So how do we rely on the information provided by the vendor itself?
Yeah, I think that's where commercial systems come into play. It's clearly that's an issue. I completely recognize. That's where the open source, again, open source in some of them makes you work harder, right? It can give you some feeds. That's where the the commercial vendors, they run, at least my understanding today is they have their own honey bots to validate before making sure that that feed is made available to subscribed companies, the consumers. They validate that in their lab, right? Make sure that this is a known one, so that like an automated response, you could bring down your business, right? At the end, that could be a competition ploy, whatever it could be. So it's really a good question. I think that's where they, at least from my experience, I've seen the commercial feed come in. It's quite accurate, if you are.
So, you just mentioned that when an organization finds a threat, it's a good thing to either inform other organizations or talk about that. And I just want to know, like, without having a solution, how an organization feels comfortable to talk about it. Like, I don't know whether I'll be protected or not, but I go announce and yes, I am alerting others, but in a way, I think I'm damaging as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. I think that's where the companies have always stayed back. Excellent question, right? That's where companies and continue to. It's not that it's not a solved problem, right? Companies continue to take a step back. Why would I tell a competition saying that I've been attacked? Yeah. Right? Because I may lose a advantage of what I have and things like that. But I think that's where clearly the call outs are. When we say it is community sharing, that's why the terms, you have to watch out the terms, right? Why do we call it as a community sharing? Right? So when do you do community sharing? When you think that it is going to be useful to your community. Right? So that's why I think it's a little bit of absolute maturity has to come in, but more and more, especially in specific some of the countries where we hear, let's say automobile companies, the competitions they meet. Some of us have part of that meetings, and clearly that's opening up really, right? It's again, you don't need to give away your information. That's why if you get an opportunity, you can go and see Soltra. It's one of the framework, again, open source framework, community sharing, that clearly calls out, it stripes down all your specific data. But I think that's going to be the greatest challenge, right? So that's where all the, people like an CISO, CIO, instill that confidence into the business. What we are doing is for goodness for all of us. I think that's where it's really, that's why, in my own perspective, that's why it is called community sharing. Simple. Oh. That's where it ends. So I think that's where I would also request, we all should be supportive, right? That's where it comes in. It's a good thing to do. You are just making the hackers really work hard, right? If you don't do that, today you are attacked, next day you are other company, the competition will get attacked, and they will get only more intensive. It's going to, when they are successful, they will do that for all the companies. So instead you sharing that particular information, you're only making it better. Yeah, you are attacked, but do you want to get to the neighbor house also, the theft happens to the neighbor house? Absolutely, probably not, right? So unless you really hate your neighbor. So.
Yeah, but we also need to emphasize more on resolving whatever the threats we have found faster.
Absolutely, yeah.
Might face while they say that I'm impacted or I'm targeted. So when I communicate to entire world that I'm targeted, so does it also impacts my reputation by saying that I'm targeted? So that is one of the threat that company might sense, the CEOs may sense.
Absolutely, I think it's not an easy thing, right? It's not an easy thing. That's why I'm saying, I think that's why the people in that position need to realize. So when we are talking about community, it's going to be a confidence scoring based community, right? You are sharing that you're not going to give away to the media, to other, that level of integrity to the expectation of business ethics has to be, right? We are sharing it for a betterment of protecting your businesses. You are seeing, and that's why I think it's very specific. You go and see the threat actors, the hacker campaigns that run very specific to the industries, right? Again, that's where I think it's a hard thing to do. It's a hard thing to do, right? Especially, it is absolutely a hard thing to do. But good thing is that, especially some industries, I'm seeing very, very good collaboration. Especially, we know financial services has been in the forefront runner of securing their enterprises, which means that they have a much confidence in sharing that information. And it's all about, it may be that you are not compromised, right? If you are compromised, then that's a different thing, right? But you have been attacked, you are seeing a particular pattern, particular group coming in, you are seeing a particular country attacking you, that's a good information. As long as if you're compromised, then I think that will be a judgmental call. You will take very differently, right? You have been attacked. Attacking doesn't mean that you lost everything, right? still companies continue to get attacked every moment, every second. Right? But if you are compromised, that's when you will have that concern about doing that, right? Otherwise, it is plenty of, if you're being attacked, you're seeing a particular pattern, that's what is getting shared at this moment.
Yeah, but I can agree with you, but how do we ensure the stakeholder confidence is not lost when I say that I am attacked and community is informed and other community is able to use that as information for them to make sure that they are not attacked. But again, for me as a business, shareholder is a primary factor for me, right? So this is what I am just coming to the same point.
Sure.
So when I share the information to community, and community will not stay, the information will not stay with the community, it will try to expand to other communities.
Right.
So how does shareholder will think of this?
Absolutely. I think, it's again evolving space too, and I'm here around, I'm happy to speak to you. There are specific things we see, and, great question. That's the hardest thing for all of us professionals to go and convince someone saying that we should be doing that. The question is really why, he's a competition that's going to be. It's really that it's in the entry level. I think that's where we need to be supportive of. And, I can share you a very specific example how that has helped other enterprises. When that confidence that comes in, you are not attacked, but you have somebody else coming and telling you that, oh, I'm being attacked, but you're happy about it. Then you will also realize, oh, this is useful to me. That's where it comes in.
I think nowadays what is happening, when the company is attacked and the systems are compromised, then the information is leaked, or they're telling, okay, I'm being compromised. So that's what is happening. But if they could tell earlier that, okay, I'm being attacked, but the damage has not done yet, so I think that would be
exactly
much more
that. It's a
beneficial.
proactive, right? You are seeing
Proactive,
a particular
right.
pattern and you are telling that that's nothing wrong, right? You are not
Right,
being compromised. That's the level up, but I think other questions also really valid. I think companies struggle.
I'm going to have to call time now, I'm afraid. But thank you very much indeed for your questions. Thanks very much to the panel. I told you they were the experts. Some excellent discussion. So thanks very much indeed.
Thank you all.